Malaysia's liberalised markets were under discussion at the Asian Financial Forum by Ranjit Ajit Singh, chairman of the Malaysian Securities Commission, and he joins us from Kuala Lumpur. Thanks indeed for doing so. Now, I understand that initial public offerings, IPOs, were major in 2012. What was the reason for that success?
Well, Malaysia has had a stellar year in terms of capital raisings. The total amount of capital raising that we've seen in the market has been the order of about US 48 billion, of which 40 billion has occurred from the bond market. So the bond markets have also had a record year. We've had a strong demand for capital to be raised via both the conventional as well as a sukuk segment of the bond market, and we've seen some very large capital raisings occur in that segment. On the equity market side, Malaysia's had a year where it has had the fifth largest amount of capital raised through the IPO markets. The fourth largest global IPO was from Malaysia, as well as two of the top 10 IPOs, largest IPOs in the world, have been from Malaysia. So certainly, it is a very strong performance in terms of capital raisings. And if you look to the reasons that drive this success, I believe that there are several reasons for that. One of which is we've had a strong economic environment. There has been very strong domestic demand for capital raisings. We continue to strive to build a regulatory environment, a regulatory framework that would facilitate the process of capital formation in Malaysia. And we believe that the access to both the equity market as well as the bond market provides companies the ability to be able to raise financing effectively.
So given the background, what are the prospects for linking Malaysia with other major ASEAN markets?
I think we think that there is a lot of potential for this to occur. ASEAN is a very important region. It has it's a very large consumer base, 600 million population, a combined GDP of about 1.8 trillion US dollars. The market cap of the ASEAN market itself is close to US 2 trillion. It has an increasing per capita income, and the growth rate's extremely favorable. And Malaysia, of course, believes that we have a very important role to work together with our ASEAN counterparts to develop ASEAN as an important asset class. And in this regard, the ASEAN capital market regulators have been working in developing an implementation plan for greater linkages of the markets within ASEAN. Our focus has been so far on several dimensions. The first one of this is to create a facilitative regulatory infrastructure among the ASEAN countries, and to be able to ensure that there is greater harmonization of rules and standards, an ability for greater mobility of capital, an ability for greater liquidity, scale, as well as capacity within the markets. And in this regard, we've put in place several initiatives, including looking at facilitating cross-border offerings of products. The collective investment schemes is an area that we believe has tremendous potential from a capital market standpoint. And we've looked at establishing easier rules for companies to be able to access capital within the different jurisdictions in ASEAN.
So looking at capital market products, would you say that ASEAN is likely to be a major star during 2013-2014?
I think the outlook for the region is very favorable. I believe that Malaysia, working very closely with its ASEAN counterparts, and is well placed together with the other markets in the region to be able to position ASEAN very strongly as an appealing asset class. And I think if you look at the economic growth story, if you look at the infrastructure demands within the region and the amount of financing that would be expected for some of the infrastructure development, I believe that the capital markets within ASEAN would certainly provide a very important basis for capital raising to occur within the region. So I certainly do believe that the outlook is a very positive one for the region, and I think the efforts that are being put in by the different jurisdictions will further strengthen the proposition of ASEAN as an appealing asset class for investors.
So how significant is the link that Malaysia has with Hong Kong for investment in China?
We believe that this is actually a very important thing to do, and we believe that obviously ASEAN is as a region, and Malaysia as an important country within ASEAN needs to work very closely with some of the major growth, if you like, areas within Asia. Asia has had a phenomenal growth story. It certainly has been a major source of growth in the world, and countries like China are an extremely important aspect of that growth region, and for ASEAN to be linked up with China becomes absolutely imperative. And if you look at, if I could just touch a little bit on Malaysia and China, if you look at the story between the kind of trade we have, China is Malaysia's largest trading partner. There is a strong bilateral ties between China and Malaysia, both political, economic, as well as from a market perspective. We've been able to have several of our institutions recognized as a qualified foreign institutional investor. Similarly, we are one of very few jurisdictions which have been recognized by the Chinese authorities as a qualified domestic institutional investor destination. And we've begun to see a lot of Chinese investments into Malaysia, and at the same time we're also seeing Chinese companies list on our exchange, and there are currently 8 companies listed. And we've also seen, importantly, our institutions, some companies which have used the renminbi market to be able to raise sukuk, and one of the world's first renminbi sukuk was actually done by Khazanah recently. Hong Kong, of course, is a major business hub within the region, and I think we are very fortunate to have a very strong relationship with the Hong Kong regulatory authorities, as well as with the Hong Kong Treasury and other institutions in Hong Kong that further allow a development of strong ties between the two countries, and the region again can certainly benefit from greater bilateral and multilateral relationships. And one of the things that we've done with Hong Kong, which is extremely attractive for us, is that we have a mutual recognition agreement with Hong Kong signed by the SFC, where we allow a cross-border distribution of Islamic funds between Hong Kong and Malaysia, and facilitate that process through much easier regulatory reviews.